So today I've got a special video for you. I want to give you guys kind of a real estate market update, what I'm seeing in the market and what I think is going to happen over the next few months. But I know you guys are probably kind of tired of me harping on and kind of giving you my opinion. So today I'm bringing in another real estate agent to kind of give me his, eye level perspective of what he's seeing in the market as well, just to make sure it's lining up with what I'm seeing as well. And it's good to get, sometimes it's good to look at things from a macro perspective on a nationwide basis, but it's also good to get that kind of boots on the ground perspective from people who are actively in the market and submitting offers, working with buyers and sellers to see what they're kind of experiencing as well. And so that's why I'm very excited to bring along Matt Arnold. He's an Annapolis, Maryland real estate agent and a good friend of mine. And I just want to kind of get his perspective on what he's seeing in the market right now. And I'll give you guys my kind of theory of what's going to happen over the next few months, but I want to see what his thoughts are on this as well. So without any further ado, Matt, welcome, man. Thanks so much for being on the live stream with me. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Malcolm. How about yourself?
Dude, I'm doing great. Well, I'm doing okay. It's a crazy market right now, and I am having a heck of a time getting any offers accepted from my buyers, as you're well aware of. So I want to ask you a question, man. What are you currently seeing in the real estate market? How does the market right now compare to what it was 12 months ago stack up? What's your kind of viewpoint on that?
I think most of my clients currently are must movers because of a job change, or a change in lifestyle, or they're being forced to move. So a lot of people are hunkering down, as you know, and I think sellers are hesitant to sell right now because they don't want to be in the buyer's market. Even though I'm telling them, hey, like, it's a seller's market out there, and now is a great time to sell. They say, well, I don't want to buy right now, so I'll just wait until this whole thing blows over.
So that's pretty interesting. So you're seeing a different type of buyer in the market. So the buyers that kind of have the luxury of buying whenever, they're not really the ones that you're working with. You're working with the people like they have a job transfer or something.
Or they have a kid.
Yeah.
Or their family's growing and they're like, oh, we need more space. Or they're saying, like, we're both working from home now and the kids are driving us crazy because they're doing homeschooling. So we need a dedicated room for the kids to do their schooling. We need office space. And people are moving out of the cities and looking for additional rooms.
Right. Yeah, that is a growing trend. Now more people are working from home. A lot of people are leaving the cities and going to more suburban areas, especially where, the homes are a little bit more affordable. So you're seeing a lot of like move up buyers, people who are having
turning their dining rooms into offices.
Yeah.
Literally, every buyer I've had in the last 6 months, I can't say everyone, but 80% of them have had office space as a must.
Interesting. So yeah, a lot more buyers or a lot more families are doing homeschooling. So you're saying like they're like quickly realizing like they don't have the room for doing this homeschooling. Mm-hmm. And so I'm having a real problem with getting any of my offers accepted. Every house that I'm submitting an offer on for my buyers, I'm seeing 5, 6, 7 offers. I saw one recently, they got 11 offers on the property.
10, 20, 30,000 above asking.
It's crazy. So you're pretty much seeing the same thing, right? It's incredibly hard to get your buyers to actually get their offers accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think a big, well, first of all, I preempt my buyers, and especially if they're first time home buyers. I tell them that they're going to get burned.
Yeah.
You're going to get burned on your first one. You're not going to listen to me. You're going to lose out on a house that you wish you would have had. You're going to be brokenhearted. And I'm going to say, I told you so. And then after that, you've gone through that experience, you're going to say, okay, Matt, all right. This time we're going to listen to you, and then it's that second offer or that third offer that I end up getting accepted for them because they're willing to go the extra mile to get it done.
Yeah. So Jeremy Knight says it's a bloodbath out there. And it really is. And it's very frustrating. I'm kind of doing what you're doing as well. I'm trying to tell my buyers, like, look, guys, it's incredibly competitive. And, any offer that you submit, you probably only have like a 1 in 5 chance of actually getting it submitted or accepted. I got to crunch the numbers and see like how many offers I'm submitting before I actually get one.
If the house is marketable, if the house is turnkey, which buyers these days, as I'm sure you know, their imagination is more or less non-existent in regards to doing home repairs themselves, a little bit of renovations, unless you get that DIY buyer who's willing to take a look at houses that have been on the market for a month or so. You know, if I would give advice to my current clients, a main piece of advice in today's environment, I would say, keep your mind open to doing some home renovations. Keep your mind open to, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a tear down.
Mm-hmm.
But if the floor plan needs to be changed around a little bit, you move a few walls around, you do some drywall work, you do some painting, some flooring, a kitchen upgrade, a bathroom upgrade. Those things might end up costing you a little bit less than what you would have to pay for a highly competitive house.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to make those changes, and it would be your house. You know, it would be your taste, and you would do it how you'd like to do it. The end result is going to be something you're going to like more. So, you know, just keep your mind open, and don't.
Right.
Don't
so you're
be
telling them they're going to have to compromise just a little bit.
Uh-huh.
You know, I tell my buyers that as well. Like when you're buying a home, it's all about compromise. Like you can't have the perfect house with the perfect yard in the perfect community in the perfect location at the perfect price. You
Mm-hmm.
have to compromise on something. And yeah, buyers are going to have to compromise a lot more right now on a lot of things. And you're saying especially like the condition of the property.
Yeah, I mean, look at the houses that have been on the market for 30 plus days. There's a reason they've been on there, and try and keep an open mind and see if there's something that you can do to that house. Instead of paying $50,000 more for the perfect house, you use that same amount of money and fix the house that's been on the market for a little bit. You might have a better opportunity there.
Yeah.
So open mind is all.
Yeah. So Jeremy asks, how much are you telling your clients they will need to pay over? And like, that's a good point, man. Virtually every client I'm working with right now, I'm telling them like, look, you guys have to pay above list price on everything. And it's crazy. It's like, how long can that go? Like if that's what all real estate agents are telling all their buyers, that's what's driving prices up, that we're all submitting above list price offers. And it's frustrating, but that's largely what's driving the prices up.
That's a tough question to answer. It depends on the house. You got to talk to the listing agent. How long has it been on the market? How many offers do they have in hand? How much action? How many showings have they had? Have you pulled the comps? Is it already overpriced, or is it at market value? If it's at market value, then I'll say, yeah, sure, maybe 10,000 over might get it for you.
That's about what I'm telling most of my people is like, at a minimum, I'm recommending at least 10,000 above. But this brings us to a good point, because, you know, money is not always the most important thing to all sellers. And there are some other strategies that I'm using, and I know a lot of other agents are using, to actually get their offers accepted. So yeah, I want to put that question to you. What other strategies are you using with your clients to actually get your offers accepted, other than just throwing money at these properties?
Yeah. Okay. So I know. Well, something I kind of picked up from you early on in my career was having these letters to the homeowners. I'm trying. You got to work every angle right now. One of which is appealing to the homeowners' personal, you know.
You pulling those heartstrings.
Pulling on the heartstrings, right? Yeah.
Hold on just a little bit.
I recently had a buyer. We were buying a $585,000 house here in Annapolis. And not only did my clients write a letter saying how much they love the house, they're planning on having their first kid there, but also they shared in that letter that you know, he's VA, he's with the Navy here in Annapolis, and they happen to be veterans as well. And even though they had an offer at $7,000 over asking, they went with our offer at asking at $585,000. We got that offer accepted, and they closed a few weeks ago. Another thing that I did with that particular couple is, not only did I have them write that letter, that personalized letter, I also sent them in to the open house without me, to appeal to the listing agent. So I said, like, look, there's an open house coming up. They're gonna review offers on Monday. This open house was on a Sunday. I said, you guys go in there to the open house and talk to the listing agent and try and create some value and try and create a relationship with the listing agent.
That's interesting.
The next day, when they were reviewing the offers, the listing agent was like, "Hey, I met your clients at the open house. They told me you were representing them, and I really liked them, and they seemed like a great couple. And they're VA, and my client's VA with the Navy, and so that that combined with the letter, and not only that, I think it's also, which a lot of real estate agents do not do, is we need to create that value with the other agent. As a buyer's agent, I need to call the listing agent and say, look, what can I do to help this offer get accepted? I'm a good person to work with. Do you want some reviews? I'm easy to work with. I'm a team player. What can I do to help? Because at the end of the day, the listing agent has a lot of, their clients are going to listen to them. If they have an offer that's 5,000 over, but that listing agent wants to work with me because they think I'm going to be easier to work with, they're going to push their, they don't care about the extra $5,000. It's not going to make them any more money. They'd rather have a smooth transaction. Yeah. I'd rather have my client take an asking offer rather than an offer that's 10,000 over with someone I know is going to be easy to work with and not going to come back and beat them up after the inspections.
And that 100% is a real thing. As a real estate agent, if I have somebody submit me an offer and it's like a sloppy offer and like they're missing forms, I'm be like, oh my God, this transaction is going to be a nightmare. I don't want anything to do with this one. Mm-hmm. They're going to miss deadlines. They're going to screw things up. This deal is going to fall apart. And so that's a real thing. And I had a transaction recently where it was coming soon. And as soon as it came up coming soon, I had a guy call me up. He's like, dude, this property is perfect for my client. He wants this so bad. I want to work with you. Tell me all this. And he really built that relationship with me. And then as soon as it went active, he got his client in there that day and they submitted an offer. And we had like 4 or 5 offers, but like he kept calling me and he was like, dude, come on, what do we need to do to make this work? Mm-hmm. And in the end, I ended up giving it to him. And I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be, but yeah, he built that relationship with me. I knew that was going to be a nice, smooth transaction. He gave me confidence. And yeah, I think that actually is an effective technique to
it goes a long way
to build that relationship with the other agent.
Mm-hmm. Make the phone calls and make yourself as accessible as possible.
Yeah,
and make sure your offer is just tight and right, and you've had it reviewed by a friend maybe, or you send it out to your title and just say, hey, like, take a look at this, make sure I got it all squared away, make sure I'm not missing, all my I's are dotted, my T's are dotted. And that way, when you submit it, it just looks clean, it's perfect, and they're not going to question how this
right, how's it going to go forward.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying about that personal letter, like, I can't stress how effective this technique is of you writing a short 1-page letter to the sellers as a buyer. And I've actually been doing this for about 1.5 years now. I've had every single one of my clients do this. And I've absolutely 100% seen sellers accept a lower offer because they somehow connect with that buyer and they build that relationship with them. And people, for a lot of sellers, the most important thing is not how much money they make, but knowing that their family, their home is going to go to a good family. So like, when I bought this house just about 3 months ago, we did that. We wrote a little letter to the sellers, and, my son's got disabilities and we moved to the specific area to get our son into a specific school. And I kind of wrote that out in that letter. And I told her, like, man, this house is going to be perfect for my son. Going to get him in the school. We're going to fence in the yard, build a playground there. And when I eventually met the seller, she like, wow, what an amazing letter you wrote. I'm so happy my house is going to a good family. Like, that is a very, very real thing. And that is just a super effective technique.
Always say, like, hey, thanks for the letter. We read the letter.
They always say that. Yeah.
They always say thank you and they appreciate it. And you're right. Like, houses are sentimental things to people. Some, not always, but a lot of people, they do the renovations. They raise their family there. They have a life there, so it's important, it's a very important piece to their life, and they want to pass that on to someone who's going to, take good care of it.
People are surprised how much emotion is in real estate from the buyer perspective and the seller perspective. There's just a lot of emotion in this game. So we talked about writing a personal letter. And we talked about writing a really tight offer, make sure all your paperwork is all cross the T's, dot the I's, have your agent kind of build that relationship with the seller. What about as-is offers? Are you seeing more of those in your game right now? Buyers
to make the offer aggressive by saying as is.
Yeah.
With right to terminate.
Yeah. Are you seeing that? Are you using that technique much?
I have used it once or twice in the last 10 months, as is with right to terminate.
Yeah. I've been doing that. I've been letting my buyers know of that technique on all of them for the last 6 months. At least telling them, like, look, here's the things that we can do to strengthen your offer. One of them is just say that you'll buy the house as is. You can still do the inspections and back out of the deal, but the seller knows ahead of time that you're not going to nickel and dime them for a bunch of little repairs. And so that goes back to, money's not always money. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by knowing that their house is going to go to a good home. Some people just want to hit that easy button. They just want that smooth transaction. And I had a seller recently. He was that kind of seller, and he accepted an as-is offer over a different offer was $10,000 higher because he didn't want that stress. He's like, dude, I just want this to close. I want as little effort as possible. And he gave up $10,000 to go with this as-is offer just so he can hit that easy button.
From a seller's perspective, or from a seller's representative's perspective, the as-is is a tough one. In one hand, it's great. Okay, they know that they're coming into this with the as-is. The inspection is for informational purposes only. They're not going to beat you up. However, with the right to terminate, I don't like that language in there. If I'm representing the seller, or if I'm the seller, this buyer can continue their home search, and if they find something better pops up in 2 weeks, they can back out of the deal for any stated purpose. No. Well,
there's a timeline to it, within that like 12 days or so. They effectively can do that anyway with the home inspection. If they say, well, I want $50,000 worth of repairs, seller says no, then boop, you're out of the contract.
Yeah, they could use that to get out too. So, okay, that's a fair point. I've used it a couple of times. honestly, as the seller's rep, I don't really like seeing it. I don't like the right to terminate. If it's as that's one thing, but the right to terminate, I'm not a big fan of.
Right. Yeah. I get what you're saying there, but if you're working with a good agent, they know, well, hey, look, ask them for $100,000 worth of repairs. They're going to say no. You can back out of the contract. And then another one I'm seeing is an escalation clause. We're seeing a lot more of those where you say, hey, look, I'll offer you $400,000. If you can offer higher than mine, I'll increase my offer in $1,000 increments up to $410,000. We're seeing a lot more of those as well. And like the challenge that I'm having is that I personally do a lot of VA loans and then some FHA loans. I don't do very many conventional loans, but with the VA and FHA, and I think conventional, you have to pass an appraisal. And that's the challenge. That's what's so tricky here is that many of my buyers can't just offer $50,000 above list price because the home is not going to appraise for that and they can't get a mortgage for that much. And so you're kind of capped with these government-backed loans. You're kind of capped at how much you can actually offer above. And especially if you're trying to get closing costs as well. I'll say, look, we'll give you $10,000 above, but we want $10,000 back for closing costs. And we're doing a lot less of that now because you can't really do that and offer another $10,000 above. Now you have to worry about the appraisal.
So in regards to the appraisal, I always just tell my buyers, like, look, the house has to appraise. So if we're going to come in at, $20,000, $30,000 over asking, just keep in mind the house has to appraise. If it doesn't appraise, the seller's going to be forced to drop the price of the house. So, you can feel relatively confident that regardless of how much you're putting out there, the bank's going to have to agree with it. So
it's frustrating. And I feel that like the people who are using these government-backed loans are the ones who are really getting hurt right now. Every house that I've purchased, I put $0 towards it with the VA loan, and I got the sellers to pay all my closing costs. So I've literally been able to just move into homes with nothing out of pocket. And that opportunity is quickly drying up. And a lot of these service members, they can't do that, right? Asking the seller to pay your closing costs, that's becoming
a home sale contingency.
Right. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. You're done. You're toast. You need to sell that house and rent for a little while.
So the people who are actually getting their offers accepted are people who are doing better financially, and they have an extra $20,000, $30,000. So for anybody watching, let's say you offer $20,000 above and the house fails the appraisal, you could just bring that $20,000 to the closing table cash to make that deal go through, right? Because you can only get your mortgage out what the appraised value is. But for a lot of like first-time home buyers who don't have $20,000 laying around, that's not an option. But the people who can do that, they're the ones who are actually getting these properties. So it's very frustrating, and that goes back to that K-shaped recovery I'm always harping on in my videos, that the people who have money now are the ones who are getting in the market, and they're benefiting from this crazy bull run that we're seeing in home prices.
And one other thing I've seen, I recently represented a seller in Hancock, Maryland, and they came in $20,000 over asking. One of the buyers did, and I was concerned about the appraisal, of course. And so they, just to get their offer accepted, I had 4 or 5 offers on that. They said if the house doesn't appraise, the buyer will contribute up to $5,000 to make up the difference in the appraisal. Right. And so I said, all right, well, I told my seller, I said, look, I was worried about the appraisal already at the asking price, and they came in $20,000 ever. I said, so let's go with this one, because even if we have to drop the price, you're still going to make out $5,000. They're going to bring that to the table. So,
and so that's
the whole difference. It can be a portion of.
Yeah. And that's a technique that I've heard of the other agents doing. I haven't done it myself, which is essentially waiving the appraisal. And you're not really waiving it, but you're saying like, hey, if it fails the appraisal, we'll bring the cash to the table to make up that difference. And so if you get an offer and saying, hey, we're going to waive the appraisal, you're much more confident that even if it fails the appraisal, that deal's still going to go through. So we've been talking a lot about buyers. So what about sellers? What are you seeing from their perspective? And Jeremy asked, how do you manage sellers' expectations? Have you seen any shift in kind of how sellers are approaching the market and kind of what they're asking for? I feel like I've seen them get much more pickier about offers as well. Now that they have the luxury of knowing that they're going to get freaking 5 offers. And I'm seeing some that are like, wow, we got 5 offers. Let's just keep it on the market for another week, see if we get another 5 offers.
Don't you love that? Don't you?
And I'm like, no, come on.
This is the number. This is the number. What's the number you need, right? It is 550. Okay, then you're happy with that. If I bring you 550 tomorrow, we're happy. And then we get 3 offers, one of which is 540, 550, 560. And then the 560 deal falls through. Well, now they're disappointed with the 550 offer.
Yeah. And like you would think that sellers should be happy right now with home prices being up so high that they'd be like, man, I can sell my house for more and just settle at kind of what the market value is. But no, they're still asking for more. They're still pushing the market. They keep seeing all these headlines that home values are way up, and they are still trying to get more than what they really should be. And they kind of are. They still are getting that.
In regards to managing sellers' expectations, I always live by the rule of under promise and over deliver.
Right.
I know the market. I know how it is. Sellers don't know the market like we know the market. Now they might know that it's a seller's market, but they don't know to the degree of generally speaking, they don't know to the degree of what they can expect. So when I have my listing appointment with them, I'll give them a number they're happy with, knowing that I can, I'll give them a number that's reasonable that I know I can get for them. But generally, I'm going to make sure I under promise, knowing that I'm going to be able to get them $10,000, $15,000 more than what I tell them I can get them.
Right. And at some point, like I feel like this market's got to shift. Like I don't know how long can this be sustainable? Home prices have gone up. According to National Association of Realtors, their September report, home prices have gone up 15% in the last 12 months, from September 2019 to September 2020. They haven't released October's numbers yet. I'm guessing they're going to be up higher. But
I think they will be.
Yeah. So that's because of what we're talking about. Buyers literally throwing money at houses. But on a $400,000 house, that's $60,000 more that their home is worth in the last 12 months just by being homeowners, which is just wild, man. And I don't know how long this is sustainable. I feel like we're seeing like a hockey stick on those charts. Home prices is skyrocketing.
I don't think we'll see this. I don't think we'll see this sharp curve that we've seen in the last 5 months continue through the winter.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I want to get to. What do you think is going to happen in the next, let's say, 3-4 months?
I think we're going to level right off, right where we are right now.
Really?
We're headed into Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of buyers out there still currently, and we are going to see a little bit of a slowdown, like we always do come the holidays. But based on the articles I've read and the predictions I've seen and what I'm seeing out here in front of me, it's not going to drop off as much as it generally does during the holidays. There'll still be business to do, but just it comes spring, I'm praying that we see the uptick in inventory that we generally see come spring.
So let me give you my prediction, my thoughts on this.
Without a little bit more inventory come spring, then I think you will see home prices jump dramatically.
So, I mean, it all comes down, if we kind of take a layer deeper, it comes down to supply and demand. And I think that the supply is way down because people are scared to put their homes up on the market, right? They've been scared for the last few months. Right now, we are seeing some very scary headlines in the news in terms of number of cases and deaths and possible lockdowns. And I think that those headlines are going to get more scary over the next few months, right? I mean, that's the trend with that with those numbers there. And I think as they get more scary, we're going to see less and less sellers wanting to put their homes on the market. And I don't blame them. If I was a seller right now, I wouldn't want 30 groups of people. So possibly, let's say 3-4 people per group, possibly 100 complete strangers walking through my house right now. That I personally wouldn't want that. And so those people, we talked about this earlier, how right now we're seeing the people who have to move, who are really motivated buyers and sellers in the market. But all those unmotivated sellers, which are like, we'll move whenever we can, they're not going to be listing their homes right now as this, the situation we're facing in our, I can't say the word, otherwise YouTube doesn't like when you say that word, but that's getting scary. We're going to see inventory really shrink as those numbers increase. And I think that's going to cause home prices to go up higher. Now, if you look at the buyers, we typically do see less buyers in the wintertime, but I think that we're going to have a mild winter. And I think that's going to allow that buying season to go on a little bit longer. And I think that a lot of people are not traveling for the holidays. So if you're not traveling to go visit your family out of state for Thanksgiving, you're not traveling for Christmas, you're not really doing much at all. You're just kind of stuck locked in your house. And interest rates are still dropping. Yeah, I do think that we're going to see an increase in buyers. So I think that 15% that we've seen, that's going to continue to escalate. Home prices are going to continue to soar. Inventory is going to continue to decline. Home prices are going to continue to soar until at least springtime of next year. That's my view on that.
Until the springtime of 2021, you mean?
Yeah. So 2021, springtime 2021, if we get this under control, right? So Moderna just released a news report saying they've got a vaccine 94% effective. Pfizer says they've got a vaccine 90% effective. The real question is, how long until they can actually mass produce this and distribute it to everybody? Can they do that in the next 4 or 5 months? I don't know. I think that we're going to have some really good headlines. So much of this comes down to newspaper article headlines. We had to have some positive headlines before we see those sellers feel much more comfortable to put their homes on the market. And once we see that, what we're going to see then is everybody who wanted to sell their home over the last 12 months but hasn't, they're all going to start. We're going to see a huge spike in inventory once people feel comfortable listing their homes. And that is when we'll see home prices level off or maybe even start declining if it's a really big spike of
I sure hope so. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. So
2022.
It could be until 2022. It could be, it's either spring 2021 or spring 2022 when we're going to see an increase in an inventory, which could cause the housing market to slow down or dip down or something like that.
Yeah, the cold weather doesn't mean that the virus gets better. It only gets a little worse as this cold weather comes on. So,
right.
I think spring 2021 we're going to be recovering from the winter. And I've been encouraging my seller clients to list in February just to try and get ahead of whatever spring inventory is going to be out there. February. Yeah. I've got a couple lined up for.
That's a good point too. Because let's say the vaccine comes out, everybody's hunky-dory in springtime, and everybody feels comfortable listing in the springtime. Yeah, you may want to get ahead of that curve before we see this huge inflow of inventory in the market. Another interesting thing to think about is, we at the beginning of March, we saw unemployment rates of about 13%. And that's just unemployed. There's a lot of people who are underemployed as well. So you would think that that's a lot of buyers who are no longer in the market. They don't have the money to qualify for homes. But we also saw a drop in inventory by 20%. And I feel like those two numbers kind of balance each other out. But if we do have another lockdown, and let's say unemployments go up to 20% or 25%, it's going to be interesting to see if that affects the demand for inventory, the number of buyers in the market. Is this something to keep an eye on? If there's, if
there was another lockdown, I wouldn't see unemployment jumping back up to the original rate.
Oh, you don't think so?
Well, people have moved to jobs that are sustainable.
Yeah.
You would see an uptick again. Yeah, sure. Restaurants and whatnot, but I bet it would be a little less dramatic than it was originally. I would guess. People have adapted.
So let's see, we got a few comments here. Let me read a few of these. Nestor says, the only way to keep upward momentum is for the Fed to give the negative interest rates. They reduced interest rates in 2019 to offset the recession and reduced it this year to do the same. So, yeah, that is interesting. And a lot of other countries have already gone into negative interest rates. And the Fed has already lowered their rate down to 0. And so we're not going to see mortgage rates at 0, I don't think. But if the Fed goes into negative interest rates, that they lend money to the banks, we could see mortgage interest rates drop way down. What's your prediction for mortgage interest rates? Do you think they're going to level off at some point? Like, how low can they go? They have to stop at some point, right? I'm already blown away. We're seeing them at 2.5% sometimes.
Yeah, I had one of my clients get locked in at 2.25. I've had two buyer clients get locked in at 2.25.
Yeah, God, that's wild, man. And so a lot of times you have to pay points. What I've seen, you have to pay points right now to get down there. But I think in 12 months that we are going to see mortgage rates below 2% interest.
Yeah, I saw that prediction that you made in one of your videos. I suppose it's possible. I just, at 2.25, if people are getting mortgage rates at 2.25, 2.5%, that's already a very high driver to go buy a house.
Right.
Is 2% or 1.9% going to drive more buyers than 2.25 and 2.5? And this is down from 4% that we were at 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, and what's interesting is so that 2% is the profit essentially the bank's making, right? The Fed's giving them the money at 0%. They're charging us 2%, 2.5%. That's their profit. Like, what's like the minimum profit that they're willing to accept? Would they accept 1% profit on a loan? They might. We have a lot, kind of the mortgage industry has changed a lot in the last handful of years too, because then we have like Rocket Mortgage and Keller Mortgage, which are all these like internet-based mortgage companies who have very low overhead. So they may be able to charge a much smaller gap of a profit. We'll see. I think they're going to keep going down. I haven't refinanced my loans yet. I'm going to wait a little bit longer, see if I can get under 2%. I'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. My first house I bought was 4.75% interest rate, and that was in 2010. And yeah, so they're already at half that right now. So Christina Smallhorn says the gap between the wealthy and the supposed middle class is way too high. You can't sustain this type of market. Yeah, this is great. Yeah, and we're seeing that gap get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to be between the people who own homes and the people who don't own homes.
That's the problem with the crisis we're in right now is the reason markets like real estate and yacht sales and boat sales and, high-end luxury car sales and RVs and things of that nature. The reason these markets have been relatively unaffected in the last year is because the people who can afford these items are unaffected monetarily, relatively. And the people who can't afford these items are renters. And they're the ones that are affected. They're the ones that are losing their jobs. And unfortunately, it's allowing the people who have the money to continue to capitalize on the housing market.
Yeah, I mean, just in the last 12 months, people who own a $400,000 home, you now have an extra $60,000 in equity. Mm-hmm. The people who want to be homeowners, you now have to spend an additional $60,000 to buy that same exact property. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I honestly think it's going to keep going up. I think that, it may be that a $400,000 house in 2019 is now worth $500,000 in, 2021. It's in that gap between the wealth gap is going to just increase, and it sucks because those folks are also the ones who are really being hurt economically right now. They're the people who work at Target and work retails that have lost their jobs or have got their hours cut or have can only have 5 people in their store at one time. Mm-hmm. And those people are the exact same ones that are hurting the real estate market. Only thing that can even that out is everybody has to buy some Bitcoin before it explodes in value. I won't even go there.
With going to another topic, something I did a little bit of research on this morning. I spoke to my title guy who's across the hall, as well as one of my lenders, to make sure that this prediction was relatively accurate, or not prediction, I guess explanation, you should say. Is to kind of calm my buyers down. When you're telling your buyers, like, look, we need to come in at 10, 20, or possibly even, if it'll appraise $30,000 over asking. If you really love this house, if you really want this house, try and focus more on the rate or your monthly payment versus the purchase price. So the numbers that I ran were on the average, 3 years ago, the average home sale in Anne Arundel County, which is where Malcolm and I do most of our business, it was $350,000. And let's just say, use as an example, a 5% mortgage rate. Now, I know it wasn't 5% 2 or 3 years ago, but mortgage rates could easily be up at 5%. And that, after we've had mortgage rates down in the 2s for the next 2 years, it's not out of the question for mortgage rate to jump up to 5% in the next 4 years.
You think so, huh? You think that the rates may suddenly jump back up in the next handful of years? It's possible. It's possible.
I mean, it's not out of the question for them to be up 5% in 5 years.
So the Fed wanted to do that. They started increasing them, 2018, 2019. Remember, Trump was all angry at the Fed for increasing the rates. Yeah. And they had to crash them back down to 0. And they said that they're going to keep them low at least until 2023. So that means 2023 is when they could start rising up again, because they want to rise up. So it's very possible 4 or 5 years from now that they could be
they fluctuate back up. The nature of interest rates. They don't stay in one spot. They go low, they go up, they go really high, they go really low. And after really low for 2, 3, 4 years, they go really high. I mean, it's
all cyclical.
Yep. So I ran the numbers at 5% on a $350,000 house. And this was assuming a 5% down payment. And with all the taxes and fees and all that good stuff in Anne Arundel County, your mortgage rate is roughly $2,468. Your monthly payment, I'm sorry. That's at a 5% interest rate. Now, that same house in the last year has gone up by 15%. Or 12.9% in Anne Arundel County, but let's just say 15%. $350,000 house times 15% is $52,500%. So that's that same house a year and a half ago that was $350 is now $402,500. You multiply that by a 2.75% interest rate, which is easily attainable right now.
Yeah.
That same mortgage rate, that same mortgage payment is $2,346. That's $122 less monthly that you're paying for a house that was $50,000 more now than it was a year ago. So when I'm talking to my clients, my buyer clients, especially at the beginning, I try and tell them, like, look, let's focus a little bit more on your monthly payment and the rate that we're getting and not on the purchase price. Because when you actually break the numbers down, yeah, you're paying more for the house right now, but because interest rates are historically low, your monthly payment is going to be even, it's going to be more reasonable than if you bought that house last year.
Right. And I mean, that's what I'm telling my buyers as well right now, that a lot of people focus on the sales price and not on the interest, and they don't really understand like how valuable that is, having that lower interest rate,
right.
How much it affects your monthly mortgage payment.
They look at that monetary value and they go, oh man, or they say, I have to pay more than asking to get this house. Like, no way. Just look at the numbers and let them speak for themselves. Don't worry about the purchase price. Look at what you can afford and what is your mortgage and what is your rate, and think about that.
And I've been telling people that for years, actually, is I don't tell them, look, pick a random number of a home value that you want. I tell them, how much can you afford monthly? Do you want a $1,500 a month mortgage payment? Do you want a $2,000 a month mortgage payment? Work backwards from there. Figure out what your interest rate's going to be, if you pay PMI, all this other stuff, and that'll give you your target price range, or kind of your maximum price range. Mm-hmm. And I think that's still true today. And I mean, what's interesting though is I don't know if this time period is going to last forever, where your mortgage payment is lower than it would be 12 months ago. If home prices keep going up, we are going to get to a point where your monthly mortgage payment would be higher than 2019. Yeah, and it all depends what interest rates do. If interest rates kind of level off, or if they keep going down, how high home prices are.
And I think there near that kind of delicate balance where if home prices keep going up and interest rates kind of flatten off around 2.5%,
yeah,
it's close right now. That's why I'm telling you, I'm saying I don't think home prices are going to continue to soar. Eventually, that's going to push and shove against each other.
It could be. Well, you know what, though? I don't think people are really aware of that. I don't think that they're really crunching the numbers like that, like they should be. And I think we could probably blow through that kind of threshold. People wouldn't even really be aware of it. Nobody's really talking about comparing your
good real estate who breaks it down for them.
Right, exactly.
You got to talk to your clients ahead of time about these things.
And I think that's partially why we're seeing home prices so high. And why people are literally just throwing money at these houses, literally just throwing money at them to get into a house, because some number of them do realize that their mortgage payment is lower on that exact same house than it would have been 12 months ago. So it's definitely kind of an interesting way of looking at it. And it definitely, I like explaining that to my buyers. They feel a bit more better about buying a home right now. Mm-hmm. All right, so Hydra 77, stimulus plus income tax return equal up in spring for sure. Hopefully we'll see some stimulus. I think everybody's blown away that we've only had one stimulus check in the last 6-9 months. And yeah, you're right. I think a lot of people will get some income tax money back, and we'll see how that affects, if that's going to help buyers out. Yeah, I mean, if buyers get some money back and stimulus, is that going to increase the number of buyers in the market? That's very possible.
Let me think about that.
Let's see. Rad says, Christina, unless new construction picks up, which it should, after January, if lumber prices are more reasonable and we have no more natural disasters. Yeah. So what do you think about new construction? Are you seeing more and more sellers or buyers kind of going that route?
Yes. Buyer frustration combined with buyer fatigue.
Right.
Is pushing people into new construction. I have one right now. I just got under contract 10 days ago.
Oh, great.
And we were looking for the last 6 months, knowing his wife was pregnant and she had the kid, Penelope. And
it's a cute name.
We were looking at relatively new homes that were like 5 years old, 7 years old, and big houses, and we just couldn't find what they wanted. It wasn't out there. And we went new home build. It's a February delivery. Met with 4 different builders who can't keep up with demand. They're not building spec houses.
Right. Yeah. What I've heard is
they're like, we don't have to build spec houses. And also, by the way, tell your client we are not negotiating on any of this stuff.
Wow.
Matter of fact, they increased the price on us while we were negotiating the contract.
Wow.
There was no negotiations. They were like, here's the price, $709. And my buyer, we were reviewing they sent us the contract. We were reviewing it, and as you know, as a buyer, when you're reading these builder contracts, it's really scary because they're geared towards protecting the builder in every way possible. So you got to preempt your buyers as they're reading this contract, just like get ready because it's going to sound kind of scary. And as 2 days went by, and as we were reading it, they were like, "Hey, by the way, the price is now $714."
Surprise!
We were like, no, we've got this contract written out at 709, and they said, oh well, it doesn't have our signature on it, so it's 714 now. Sign it, or we're moving on to the next buyer. And they had to. And I tried to offer them. So I was like, no, we're in at 709. Take this, and run. And they turned it down. They were like, nope.
Wow.
We're available at 714, and that was just a matter of 72 hours.
So let me ask you, how many months out is that house going to be delivered or estimated to be delivered?
February.
Oh, okay. That's pretty quick.
They already put the foundation in.
Okay. I've heard that the delivery date is being pushed out because they're getting run right now as well at buyers. Mm-hmm. That's pretty interesting. And yet there really is a shortage of lumber right now. We're trying to get a deck built on our house that we moved into. And that's what everybody's telling me. They give me these outrageous quotes for decks, and they're saying there's just a national shortage. Builders obviously are doing great right now, and they're using it all up. I was talking to Christina Smallhorn last week. She's saying, a big part of all the lumber is actually going to all these natural disasters we have. All the forest fires out in California that are completely burning down entire communities of homes. And we've had hurricane after hurricane hit the southeast. Florida and the Gulf Coast, and really like devastating those people. And it's like all our lumber is going there. All lumber is going to new construction. And we're having kind of a shortage of lumber right now in the U.S. We'll see. I mean, that's probably going to increase as well. It's probably have some supply chain issues, if I had to guess. Combine
the shortage of lumber and that cost increasing with today's real estate environment. If you go to any big development, at least here in Maryland that I've had my eye on, you'll notice that basically every single new home build is increasing in price. Go on the MLS, they all have that little red arrow. Every single one of them is up.
I wonder if they've seen a 15% increase in price. I haven't really dug into that, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're there to make money. Yeah. They're probably jacking their prices way up. I mean, they're kind of limited. They can only build so many houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, new home construction is going to be a big deal in 2021. Matter of fact, we've talked about doing a little advertising to some new home construction clients on Facebook, and I think that's going to be gold for the
and I think you're right, man. I think that a lot of buyers are just going to start moving in that direction. So Christina says there's a poll out that 31% of Americans are still going to have family gatherings for Thanksgiving.
I'm surprised it's not higher.
I actually am too. I'm having one.
I got so many people over at my house. I got a camper parked outside.
Jeez, stay away from me, man. So we are. I've got
quarantining right now though. So when we get together, everyone's doing their best to be safe now, so that when everyone comes over, because there's going to be some infants there, babies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a prepper. I'm still pretty paranoid about this virus and everything. But what I'm doing is we're doing it like an outdoor thing. We're not having our turkey. We're just having a family get together. I'm going to have a bonfire. I got a scavenger hunt set up for my nieces and nephews in the woods. We're going to get some like cornhole going on. We're going to get some just some outdoor activities. It's going to be more like just a family gathering outdoors.
During the day.
Yeah. Actually, we probably could do it during the day. It'd be warmer that way. We have some warm apple cider, some hot chocolate, have a little bonfire. So we're trying to be responsible about it, but I have a feeling a lot of people are not. A lot of people are going to say, well, screw it. And yeah, man, that's why I think that the number of cases is just going to skyrocket for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. And you're right. I'm surprised it's not higher than 31%.
Yeah, I am. I mean, Thanksgiving is one of those. I mean, that's it. If you're going to skip Thanksgiving, I guess that's a good number. I mean, it's good that many people are taking it seriously. But yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah, 31%. That, if you're going to have a family get together, it's going to be on Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah. So Rad says if interest rates stay low, then values probably continue to rise. So there is a direct correlation between interest rates going down and home values going up, right? That is like a historic correlation. You can easily see that. Interest rates go down for that same monthly payment. That buyer can now afford a more expensive house, and they just throw money at houses to get them. And so that's, yeah, if interest rates keep going down, very strong possibility that values are going to go up. So this is how I explain it to everybody, right? You have supply and demand. If demand goes up, home values go up. If supply goes down, home values go up. What we're seeing is demand went way up and home inventory went way down at the same time. But yeah,
economics 101. And yeah, he's right. He's totally right. I mean, if rates continue to come down, they have more buying power. They can afford more, period.
Yeah. And if we see negative interest rates in America, like we're seeing in other countries, the sky's the limit, man. We may see home values double. I'm not even kidding. So Canada has a big problem right now. I talk about this in my videos that in the last 15 years, the average home value in Canada went from $250,000 to $600,000 in just 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it's sustainable. You wouldn't think it is, but it is. And the government is actually trying to crash the real estate market. They're actively taking steps to try to slow that growth down to make it easier for buyers to get in there. And they're seeing that wealth gap kind of get bigger and bigger, and it's harder and harder for people to get into real estate. So it's going to be interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see what steps the government takes to try to crash our real estate market. So you own a home, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How long have you owned your home for?
November of 2017.
Okay. Have you built some equity in that house since you moved in?
I put a little bit of, I knowingly put a little bit too much money into the renovation.
Yeah.
I'm probably right about where I need to be. I'm just about even. I think I've covered the cost of the renovation and, went a few tens of thousands over than I should have gone. But, so no, to answer your question, I did that knowingly. It was just
right.
I knew I was going to be there for a long time.
So my point was really that, for many people, their home is their largest asset. And, when I bought my first house in 2010, and I bought it with the VA loan, and I pretty much bought it for free and moved right in, and I still own that house. And in 10 years, I've built about $100,000 equity in that house, completely for free. I was pretty much given that house with the VA loan. And that has really helped me out financially. And that's an opportunity that a lot of buyers right now don't have. They don't have that opportunity to build that financial wealth and build that equity like I did when I was 25 years old. So that's kind of what frustrates me, is that a lot of these buyers, it's harder for first-time home buyers right now. And I think it's going to get even harder. And that goes back to that wealth gap that just keeps increasing.
Yep, I agree with that. Hey, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You've made a few statements in regards to foreclosures popping up here in the next 6 months or so. Do you have an idea? Do you have any idea of when this moratorium is going to be lifted, the foreclosure moratorium? And I know that foreclosures, an article I just read a few hours ago stated that foreclosures are up 20% month over month.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So,
but that's down 80% year over year.
So with the CARES Act, the government on a national level put a moratorium on foreclosures on federally backed loans, VA, FHA loan. Many governors then took that and applied it across the board for their entire state. So here in Maryland, Hogan has done that. We have a foreclosure moratorium in state of Maryland, and ours is tied to our state of emergency. So while Hogan has us in a state of emergency, the state of Maryland's not accepting any foreclosures. But many states like Florida, they just put that moratorium on like a specific date, and Florida is now foreclosing on people. So, if let's say they have 8% unemployment right now because of this, the situation, those people who can't make any money for the past 6 months, Florida's just foreclosing on them. They're repossessing their properties. So in some states, that foreclosure crisis has already started taking effect. In other states like Maryland, we're kind of kicking the can down the road and we're kind of delaying it. And, what's interesting is that, it may take 6 to 12 months for that whole foreclosure process to go through before that bank actually gets that property and then can put that home up on the market. So whenever that happens in those specific markets, we're going to see an increase in inventory. And so that's partially why my prediction is spring 2022 of when we're going to see a market crash, or really just a big surge in inventories. We're going to start seeing those foreclosure inventory hit the market all around the nation. So yeah, to answer your question, in Maryland, we haven't had it yet. In some states, though, they are now foreclosing on people, which sucks. That's very frustrating. And that goes back to that wealth gap again. Those people who, are being hurt financially and lost their jobs, they're the ones who are now losing their homes as well. And that wealth gap is going to get bigger and bigger. It's crazy, man. It's a freaking mess out there. So let's take a look here. New homes in my area that were 232,000 at the start of the year are 270,000 now. Same plan.
That sounds right. That sounds about right. What's that? 15%, maybe 20%.
Something like that. I'm bad at math, but that's like $40,000 right there. Yeah, that's probably about 15% right there. That's totally believable. I think it's going to keep going up, honestly. So let's see.
Yeah, it's 17%, something like that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that this is going to be on a local specific thing. Like here in Maryland, right? We have a lot of military and government workers who are still employed. In Florida, they probably it's a very tourist-driven market. They have a lot of people relying on tourism, which is not coming. So their unemployment rate is going to be a lot higher than the state of Maryland.
Yeah. All the entertainment states. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's what I heard too.
So luckily we're
and Vegas and there's all kinds of places that are going to be dramatically affected come in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what other comments we got. Thought I'm not in favor of such a move by the Fed. Oh, here we go. If the Fed competes with local banks with direct accounts, rates can go lower without negative interest rates, by the way. Well, I'm not familiar with that. So you're saying if the Fed lends money directly to consumers in the form of a mortgage instead of the banks doing that? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that at all. I disagree with focusing on monthly payments and not final price. Okay. With the severity of the recession still in the wind, you don't know if you will be able to make payments even 6 months from now. So, I mean, there are some valid arguments to looking at the actual sales price. It does. I'm a little nervous about telling people not to look at it because that is what causes prices to freaking skyrocket.
If you have to worry about your monthly payment, I mean, I'm not saying buy a home that you can't afford. I'm saying focus on the monthly payment that you can afford rather than the purchase price, because with interest rates being this low, take advantage of that. If you're worried about not being able to make your payments in 6 months, then you shouldn't be buying a house. Period.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point.
And that goes back to my point that, people who are affected by this recession, as you call it, or crisis, aren't buying houses. The people who are affected by it aren't buying houses. They're not buying new cars. They're not buying boats. It's the people who are affected by it who don't have to worry about job loss that are buying these. As far as I can tell, all my buyers, none of my clients have lost their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, around here, we're both in Maryland. Unemployment rate's still pretty low, and we're not. If you think that you may lose your job in the next 6 months, it may not be a good time to buy. And also, I want to point out that we're not just saying just look at your monthly mortgage payment. We're saying that with a 30-year loan, because you could get like an adjustable rate mortgage or something. That's what caused the 2008 financial crisis. All these adjustable rate mortgages with super low monthly mortgage payments. I mean, I still think that's kind of like the best strategy out there right now. I think is to look at when your monthly mortgage payment is. That's what's always worked for me. And that kind of plays a factor into whether you should rent or buy as well, because typically when you buy, you have a lower monthly mortgage payment.
It also depends on if you're planning on living there. Is it an investment property, or is it going to be your family home, your permanent residence? That's a big question there too, because if it's an investment property, then no, definitely you want to look at a different strategy there.
So we got two really interesting comments, and then we can call it a day there. So Joe Morris, will the housing market crash? So what do you think?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Well, kind of.
It depends on what you call a crash.
Right. That's it.
Is it going to correct over time? Sure. Is it going to? Is there some bubble out there that we're not seeing? I don't think so. It's not like 2008 where there's going to be some huge crash and everyone's going to get foreclosed on. I've been watching it pretty carefully. I think it's going to correct itself after the whole pandemic is over. Housing prices are going to drop. I don't think they're going to drop. I don't think housing prices are going to drop lower than they were in December of 2019.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Okay.
What's your definition of a crash? Is a crash losing the equity that we've made in the last 6 months? Because if that's what your definition of a crash is, then yeah, sure, that's always possible. I mean, real estate is cyclical. You know, your value of your house isn't always going to go up and up and up and up and up. It's going to come back down sometime. You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at home prices, let's say over since the 1970s, right? Home prices have gone up almost consistently up since the 1970s, right? Home values have tripled since 1970 to 2020. And there are a couple little dips in there along the way, but even the 2008 recession, the 2008 market crash, it was just a small little blip when you look at it at a 50-year timeline. So are we going to see a market crash? Well, I think that, if you own a home and your home's value goes up by $100,000 and then it comes down to where it's only up $70,000, it pulls back down by 30 grand. Is that really a crash? Not if you own that home the entire time. If you bought at the top and then it loses $30,000 in value, maybe you could call that a crash, but home values are going to go up. It all comes back to supply and demand. At some point, the supply is going to significantly increase, right? Once people feel comfortable listing their homes, once we have all these foreclosures entering back into the market, because we don't have any foreclosure inventory right now. So we are going to see a huge increase in supply at some point. And at some point, these interest rates have to stop dropping, and that demand from buyers is not going to be as severe. And yeah, I think that we may see home prices start leveling out a little bit. And they may even come down. We may see a market correction, but I wouldn't actually call it a crash. That's my view.
Also, let's think about what causes a crash. A lack of buyers, an increase in inventory. I don't see there being a lack of buyers anytime in the foreseeable future, in the near future anyway. The millennial buyers are just starting to really hit the market hard, and that's why we're seeing such an influx of buyers in the market right now. Is young millennial buyers who have money, and that's not. I don't think we're going to have a lack of buyers out there in the next several years.
Yeah, and another big factor to this is what the government does, what steps they take. If they do nothing, then yes, if they just leave it to a fair market, I think that we are going to see a pretty big correction at some point. But if they take steps, I mean, what they take is going to directly impact it. What the Federal Reserve does is going to directly impact it. I'm making a video right now talking about Joe Biden's policies relating to housing moving forward. And he essentially wants to completely reform the whole foreclosure process, right? He wants to have a Bill of Rights for homeowners and completely get involved in the whole foreclosure process, which I agree with. And if he does that, then we may not see that foreclosure crisis. Well, the foreclosure crisis already started right now. But in some states, they may be able to delay it until we have some more protection laws in effect to protect homeowners. And if we can avoid this foreclosure crisis nationwide, that's going to affect the supply in the market as well as the demand. So much of it is going to come down to what steps the government actually takes. So it makes it really hard to predict these things. All right. Last question. Would you invest in California right now? Are you tracking what's going on with California a little bit?
No, I'm interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, so I'm only kind of tracking it, but the gist of it, my understanding is that they raised their taxes significantly, and there's a whole bunch of people moving out of California right now, moving out of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and everything.
Moving
And
into
yeah, and California is kind of like its own little microcosm, I think is the word. But they have their home values are ridiculous. You know, San Francisco, $600,000 to buy you like a little shack, kind of like, you know, Washington D.C. or something, or like New York City. And there's just not much value in a lot of these big cities in California. And now that we're seeing more and more people being able to work from home, it's kind of a big macro trend of people are moving away from these bigger cities and moving out to more rural areas where
it's not just California. I'm sure it's that way in New York, DC.
Yeah.
People realizing that they can, you know, I got a buddy of mine that's predicting that like vacation properties are going to go through the roof.
Oh,
permanent residents.
Oh, with permanent residence. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, why not? If you could work from home and live anywhere that you want, why not go to like a vacation spot? Go live on the beach somewhere.
Yeah, or people selling their permanent home and just moving to their second home permanently.
Yeah. And so what's kind of interesting, you know, I don't want to get into politics too much, but we saw that Arizona flipped blue, and Texas is still red, but it almost flipped blue. And it makes you wonder, is that from people leaving California and moving into Arizona and moving into Austin, Texas, that it's kind of influencing the politics in these more rural areas as well? I don't want to go down that rabbit hole too deep. But I think that's a great place to end this live stream. I think we had a good discussion. We had some great questions. Yeah, Matt, thanks so much for joining me today. And yeah, once again, Matt's in Annapolis, Maryland. If anybody ever wants to contact him, I'll have his contact information down in the description below. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. I may do more kind of live streams like this in the future and bring Matt back on, maybe interview some other agents around the country. And it's definitely fascinating times. Like I'm so like interested in just kind of watching what's going on right now.
It's changing so fast, week to week. It's just
yeah. Every week there's some new headline. You know, foreclosure crisis, eviction crisis, Federal Reserve lowering interest rates, home value skyrocketing. Every week is something new. So it's pretty interesting. Make sure you guys stay subscribed to kind of keep up to date on what's going on with the housing market. So Matt, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Malcolm.
All right. See you, everybody.
See ya.